Hello, it's me, Joe Valek, and I am in a Moxie hotel room, and I'm with a legendary guy, Neffa-T. Hello.
Hello, mate.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very, very well, thank you. It's wet, it's miserable, and we're hiding from the rain inside. So thank you for your hospitality on this miserable Saturday. You've got a big event coming up tonight as well. We're actually hiding from Wheel and Deal Central Warehouse. 15 years of Wheel and Deal, isn't it?
Yeah, man.
Big lineup.
Crazy lineup. Crazy to have David Rodigan on the lineup. That's super sick. And Joker always. You know, there's people who you see more often because they're really on the circuit, but David Rodigan feels like a real special addition to that lineup as well. Especially in the mix with everyone, if you get me.
Does he not do many sets these days?
I don't think it's that he doesn't do many sets. I just haven't seen him on a more dubstep oriented lineup. Do you know what I mean? I haven't seen him on a dubstep themed lineup for a while. So to have him in that context is really cool, I think.
Someone's got the budget. Anyway, let's start off as we always do with a little gift for you, Mr. T.
You didn't have to, man.
Of course I did. Here's something. Have a look. Tell me what you think, and then show the cameras.
Groove Armada.
Love
Sick.
box.
Thank you, man.
No specific relation to you. I just thought you probably like Groove Armada and you might not have
I
the
like
CD.
anything these days, so yeah, thank you. And if I'm less familiar with it, the better. I know obviously Groove Armada, but some of these tracks I probably haven't heard, so thank you.
The album tracks, I love CDs because you hear tracks like you say that you've never heard before because they just got forgotten about.
Yeah.
Now they're remembered. But the first question is, you've got a flow down dub, you've got a Flirta D dub.
Yeah.
What is your dream exclusive Neffa-T dub?
Probably, I was thinking about this, probably a Trim dub, I reckon.
Yeah.
Because he's super unorthodox. I don't think he's done a dub for anyone. So I think it's not just a rarity thing, but the way he thinks and puts together lyrics is insane. So someone like Trim would probably be the dream dub plate.
Do you think you can make it happen?
We'll see.
You're quite friendly with him.
Yeah. I mean, I've got so much respect for the guy, so hopefully.
When someone has the budget, there we go. Now, I know you're a big fan of the Fabric Live mix CDs, but tell me about the Grime Time Neffa-T mix CD from many years ago.
So, Grime Time mix CD was the first sort of promotion mix I properly did, that was a physical format. And when I was living in Bournemouth, what I did is I would get 100 made, and that was the first one I did. I got my friend to do the graphic design for it, get a sort of sleeve with some artwork on it. It was just a way back then to promote myself, and I think that was the first time where I felt like I actually had something, being aspiring to be a specialist DJ, I had something to actually give to people and show them what I do. It's kind of like a musical CV. I don't want to turn it into a business sort of theme the whole time, but it just felt like, as well, it was a way for me to kind of build up my network and reputation as a DJ organically. So if I was working in a retail store and then I found out they liked electronic music, I'd be like, well, do you want a free mix CD? So it was my way to kind of openly just promote myself in a more organic way, I think, than I think unfortunately even back then a link to a SoundCloud just didn't have the same sort of because I think you can see the TLC that goes into a mix series, but yeah, it was still hella corny. Had a little clock logo in the middle of grime and time, so it was yeah, I wouldn't do it now, but at the same time I like the graft that it kind of embodied, if you get me. And then I did a few more after that. We did a few more before, but not more sort of specific to maybe get on Get Dark TV or to give to a promoter, but this was just a mix CD for the sake of being one, so it felt quite natural as well.
I mean, there's something important about physical items. I mean, even by today's standards, if you gave someone a CD, well, if you give them the SoundCloud thing, they might forget, they might not listen to it or care, but CD, they're going to find it the next day and go, what the hell is this, and stick it on.
I think in grime as well, grime's got such a strong DIY culture. It felt very DIY, it was it's not through a publication, there's nothing wrong with that, but it just felt like, here's my mix CD, I've just made everything, I've got someone to do the design, and then it's bang, you just chuck it out. So I felt like it was a bigger accomplishment maybe at that point in my journey in music, because it felt like I'd kind of curated the whole thing from physical to the digital side of recording it and curating the tracks and buying the tracks and all that stuff. So it felt like a lot more of a personal project than just putting a mix online somewhere.
Quote from you, I rarely walk away from my sets content. Can you expand on why this is?
I think for different reasons, maybe part of my childhood and how I grew up, and also probably a combination of OCD and ADHD. I'm just a perfectionist down to the bone. So my brain kind of always goes to the thing that I didn't do right instead of the things I have done right. And when I was younger, in my earlier stages of doing music and DJing, I wasn't so good at kind of acknowledging the good side. I would always just kind of objectively go, oh, well, the set's ruined because I made this one little mistake here, and I'd kind of really beat myself up over it in my head. But now I've got a better harness on it, and I think now it's about always wanting to find ways to improve, but also objectively like acknowledging the good stuff I've done, but just working ways I can always tinker it. You know, I could do what I think's the best mix, and I'd like to think in a year's time I would be able to one up myself. So I'm always now trying to look to one up myself instead of beat myself up over it. But I think it's come from a culmination of things like events in my life and just the way my brain's probably wired. But I think it's a double-edged sword. You know, sometimes you can take it too far when it kind of becomes destructive. But if you can harness it in a healthy way to keep you constantly pushing to do better, then you can really like flourish with it.
I'm glad you found ways to work around that feeling, because it probably is quite hard when you've done a 6 set and everyone says that and you walk away saying that was terrible.
If I'm being completely transparent, I think the sort of big wake-up call I realised is like you could go through your whole life and not really ever enjoy it, and you're not really being present, and like you don't really ever have fun with the set, you know, and you don't want to get to a stage where, and I feel like I walked the line with it in my young years as well, where you're constantly just not happy with anything, and you don't realise that you've actually done something really good. You've just kind of immediately just checked out because there was this one tiny flaw in it, and it's like ultimately you can strive for perfection but embrace the imperfections there. And now I'm driven more by the energy of something as opposed to how technically every little thing is, because if I kind of focus in and obsess too much about every little thing, like the mids and every tiny little detail and the percentage of the effects and stuff, to an extent that's good, but if the energy's not off and I'm just too focused on that, then I'm not really in the performance or in the mix and in the music. I'm just kind of doing difficult things with my head down. It's not very engaging, you know. So yeah, it's something that I'm trying to find that balance with still, but I think I've got it in a lot better check than I did in my younger years. But that's been one of the biggest parts and learning curves of my journey in music so far, I think, and my personal life, you know. Even in boxing or something now, like if I do sparring, you know, like a month in and they're like, oh, it was good, and I'll immediately just be like, no, it was shit. I'm still trying to unlearn it in other senses, you know, because I always want to be better, but you want to do it in a way where you're not making yourself miserable through the process, because there's a lot of fun in the process of improving and learning and finding ways to sort of hone your craft more.
Thanks for sharing. It's good advice. I'm sure a lot of people would take things from that.
Hopefully it's something, you know, like I don't think anything, I always say it in my workshops, like if I have like a stance or I've learned something, it's not the right way to do it, it's just something that might have worked for me, and if you can share something with someone, I like that open source idea of like maybe someone can extrapolate something that you've learned and apply it to their own thing and maybe develop it or something, you know.
Now you're known as a Bristol boy, but you actually blossomed as a DJ in a different city, almost as if you interned in a smaller city, preparing to come back to the big city and kill it. So tell us, what impact how did living in Bournemouth impact you?
I think looking back now, it was a blessing, because I mean, initially when I went there, and it still got us a kind of decent-ish nightlife, but the nightlife when I first went there when I was 18 was insane. You know, you could see like huge electronic music headliners like every weekend. And I think although the crowd were good, crowds, as I learned when I moved to Bristol and started playing Bristol and London, are a lot more, I'd say, like open to you playing like stuff maybe they haven't heard. And I think in more student-based towns, I think sometimes, and it's not to stereotype or to just like gloss it, but I think that people perhaps want something that's a bit more familiar if it's not like a place which is like a cultural hub for like electronic music. So for example, in Bristol you've got Jemmy, you've got like High Five Ghost, you've got Boofy, you've got Pinch, you've got so much history within dubstep alone, let alone other genres, that I think people are kind of grow up with like that excitement to find new music.
Yeah.
But I think as time's gone on, moving to Bristol, I had to kind of unlearn a lot of those things, because I would kind of mediate my sets in a way where I was still playing stuff that I really loved, but I was playing stuff that I was conscious to make sure was still really going to be engaging. So if I play grime, it's in a way where grime can be accessible in a sense where I can still play it with tracks that I like, but tracks that maybe aren't so sort of like this new unreleased dub from a producer that they wouldn't have heard, that they maybe wouldn't have been so open to hearing. But in Bristol, it was kind of the opposite. The first time I played in Bristol, people would go crazy for the stuff they hadn't heard before, as opposed to like a more sort of like, I don't want to say mainstream, but just a more familiar tune in like surface underground music.
And what surprised you the most about playing in India?
I suppose off the top of my head, how strong of a community they've got for electronic music there, but also how united it felt like the scenes were in every part of India that I visited. And I think the reality check I got is that you can travel anywhere in the world and have something in common, or you know what I mean, you almost feel connected to this bigger family, whatever part of the world, whether it was Japan or India or somewhere in Europe, like. But I think just how energetic they are probably in like every crowd in India was amazing, so that was a blessing to go do that.
I've seen some great clips from over there.
Crazy, especially like, not even me, but if you see like the footage Hamdi has, is insane.
I haven't seen that.
It's crazy, yeah.
I'll be checking that out.
So yeah, India, great for that.
Now, you found your love for music whilst skating, but I'm curious, what is your greatest moment on a skateboard?
I was thinking about this. I think, so I'm a perfectionist in skateboarding as well. Someone go, "Oh, you just landed it," and I'm like, "No, I was shit though, because my foot wobbled a bit, or like there was, you know, like I had to pivot a little bit or something." I think it was over lockdown. My mental health was in a pretty bad place, and we went to a park in Cardiff called Spit and Sawdust.
It's a good park.
Great park. And in the corner there's this huge like bank. It's kind of like a pyramid, sort of like, it's not a pyramid as in skate term, but it's like a sort of big sort of like triangular like ramp in the corner. And I think I wanted to land this. I wanted to land a big flip on it, like right at the top. And 1 minute after the whole thing's shut and they're kicking us out, I was just like, just give it one more go. And I kept trying it. And someone was filming it. One of my friends, Drone, at the time was filming it, because we were skating over lockdown a lot together. And I got it bolts, and it wasn't the trick so much. It was more the how would I put it? It was the positive momentum it gave me to kind of keep pushing on and get through this bad patch I was in. I was like, okay, this is something that I can, you know. It just gave me that little bit of almost like encouragement mentally to just be like, okay, you've got something, you can work with this, you know. It felt like something might be on the up if I just kind of applied myself and kind of reconnected with the things that I loved. So I'd say on a deeper level, probably that, when I got the big flip on the big bank at Spit and Sawdust, which to some people is like, you know, I always compare myself skateboarding, especially in Bristol. People who skateboard in Bristol are so good. So it's hard not to compare yourself when, you know, there's people who could go there and do that first try. But for me, that was big.
And by contrast, what's your biggest Hall of Meat moment or biggest bail if you never played Skate 3?
I think about this as well. I don't have like a singular one, but I've got like a sort of cluster of these injuries that all happened in the space. I think it was over 2019. I first fractured my elbow. I was with Lems at the time, and we'd been skating all day, and it was like curbside in the summer in Bristol, and there's a manual pad there, and at the time it hadn't become like a DIY spot. It was pretty much just the manual pad, and we were just skating. I was really tired, and I was like, I'm just going to pop up into the curb and just try and ollie manual a couple of times. And because I wasn't paying attention, I was tired, my back trucks hung up, and then I went upside down, slammed on it, and then fractured it. And that was the second time I'd fractured it in like 2 months. The first time was hanging up on like a, I think just like a, what do you call them? Like a drain manhole, is it?
Like a manhole cover, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the second time I'd literally just got better and I just did it again. I was like, and then 3 weeks after that, I was skating in a sling to Route 1 to start my shift, and then I hit some, you know where the tarmac melts?
Yeah.
Like my trucks hit that, and I was late to work because ADHD, just time blind. So then I'm like skating to work, rushing, and then like the trucks just like locked into that bit, completely stopped. And my brain just, without me thinking, tucked in my elbow, and then I took it all on my shoulder and my knee went right down to pretty much the bone and dug it up and stuff. They thought I'd broken it. Luckily hadn't, but it was, I couldn't walk on it properly for like a month. So it was just like, yeah, and every time I'd like fracture my elbow, my hands were all just like dug up as well. I had to shower with like gloves on, and it was long. Yeah, so collectively that 6 month period was relentless, but I didn't want to give it up, you know. But it's just kind of, you realise in these situations how much something means to you, because if you still want to do it after that, then you love it, you know, because you'll do crazy things for things that you love.
You said Skepta versus Devilman was the best Lord of the Mics, and having watched it again recently, I think I have to agree. But if we were to do in 2024 a UK team versus the rest of the world, pick 2 MCs and 1 DJ for each side, who are you picking?
For the UK, at this moment in time, and this is partly down to people I work with, but I'd say Duppy.
Yeah.
My guy is so consistent and so hungry for it and so good. Like, you don't really see Duppy fuck up, you just see him just laser on point every single time I watch a set, whether it's Transpresents, a live show, any radio set. And Mike, of course, as well, because his freestyle ability is insane. And he's just super creative with it. And the way that he puts his bars together as well. So as a duo, I would say those 2. Do I have to do DJ as well?
If you don't mind. You can pick yourself.
No, I'm not going to pick myself. I would say... That's a good question. I'd like to see General Courts in that combo. I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
But I think, to be honest, there's a lot of really good grime DJs. So I think, like, whether it's people I work with, but I'd say General Courts or Mixer or Trends. Trends is known more as a producer, but he's actually a crazy good DJ. But the same with P-Jam and all those guys. Like, they're all, to a lot of people, I think they're producer first because their production speaks so much and it's so strong. But they're also crazy good DJs as well. So maybe someone from that crew, if not, and then what for outside of the UK? Yeah, I don't know about this one. I'd say maybe for Brazil, I'd probably say collectively people from the Brazil grime show and the Brazil grime scene, because I feel like outside of the UK, that's the first country that comes to mind is Brazil for grime and how much they're pushing it and how much good stuff they're doing for grime. So I couldn't name names because there's so many good MCs and DJs that they work with, but like they know who they are and like all part of the Brazil grime show. Like the levels are crazy. It feels like a whole new energy when I see what they're doing in Brazil.
There's some homework. Go and watch Brazilian grime show if you haven't already. And conscious of time, last question for you: is there anything you want to get off your chest?
Just looking forward to releasing new music myself. I've been non-stop just doing tunes and just shutting myself away in a spare room to make new music again, which feels really nice because I'm actually finishing stuff. Outside of that, I'd say just look into the up-and-comers. I think what's most exciting is there's so many good up-and-comers coming up in grime music, and for a while I didn't really know who would, not me, but who people in grime would be passing the torch down to specifically. But like this guy right here, this is definitely one of the people I would say is like already the future of grime. So it's exciting to know that we've got people with such talent that are already paving the way and setting a new standard for like what grime is going to be, and just electronic music in general.
Exciting. Well, thank you very much.
Of course, man.
Appreciate your time, and we better get to the venue.
Yeah,
we better
sure.
do. Peace.
No.